All right, let's bring her in. You remember her from Ari's season of The Bachelor, Bachelor in Paradise season 5, but more importantly, she has, as of 3 months ago, gotten her PhD in clinical psychology. She is now a clinical psychologist in the Raleigh-Durham area. It is my pleasure to now introduce Dr. Jacqueline Trumbull.
Hello.
Look at you, doctor. You look totally the same.
It's
Nothing's changed.
My name looks legit as fuck.
Yes, I know. Your name is look at that. Dr. Jacqueline Trumbull on the screen. How about that? You are, and you know what? A couple of times that you've been on the podcast has been like in your apartment, your hair was back, and you're just kind of, now you're all professional. You probably had some clients this morning. You have clients this afternoon, right?
Yep.
Wow, that's awesome. So how, just out of curiosity, how do you build up, is it just word of mouth? How do you build up a client base in a new city now when you're starting this out as, hey, I'm now Dr. Jacqueline Trumbull?
I work for a private practice. So the practice owner does advertising and then sends me, consult calls to do. But I don't actually know how that side of things works. I want to open my own practice at some point, but not today. I'm still a postdoc, so I still have to get fully licensed before I can open my own practice.
Gotcha. And we also want to mention that you got your PhD in clinical psychology from Duke University, a very prestigious university. Yeah, that's big. Since we last spoke to you, you were on 4 months ago. I had to look, and I was like, yeah, that sounds about right. I seem to have Jacqueline on about every 4 months, 3 times a year. We always bring you on, at least we have for the last couple seasons, after Love is Blind season ends, and that's what we're going to cover in today's podcast, because you and I have not spoken about Love is Blind. I've seen some of your thoughts on Instagram stories, which we'll go over. I had to help you out with a couple things that you were unaware of, which we'll get into as well. But before we get to that, you remember the ring stuff with Patrick and Casey. You didn't know.
Oh, yes. Okay.
Yeah. So before we get to that, though, since we last had you on, you took a 5-week solo trip to Africa, which I followed along on your Instagram stories. And first off, to take a 5-week trip solo anywhere is just amazing. And the fact that you went to Africa and you were all over the place in Africa, and you did have some money issues when you were there, but the fact that you did that, I tip my hat to you for being able to do that. But there was a part of you that you were very vocal about the fact that I'm kind of bored out here and lonely. So again, what made you take the solo trip? I mean, you're a big solo trip woman. You've done it before, but what made you do Africa? Did it get better? How far into the 5-week trip were you like, man, maybe I shouldn't have done 5 weeks by myself?
So, well, I'm glad I did it. So I've traveled a lot. I have a goal to go to 50 countries before I have a baby. And
where are you at now?
49.
Oh.
And I just booked 50. So I'm going to India in February.
Gotcha.
So Africa was the continent. I've been to all 6 inhabited continents, but in Africa, I'd only been to Morocco. So it was a big missing piece of my travel. And I'd done extensive time in other places. So like the 5-week thing was long, but I mean, I lived in Slovakia for 10 months with a host family, right? Like not with anybody I knew. And I lived in Poland for 2 months by myself, and I lived in Scotland for 4 months by myself. And I've traveled in Southeast Asia for months at a time. So I've traveled a lot. It's just that I didn't start solo traveling other than like the times when I moved to places. But when I moved to places, it was like for the program. I had started solo traveling like a year and a half ago to Chile that we talked about, where I got the like insane sunburn. So this is like a relatively new thing. And in Chile, it was more like I was relying on myself the whole time. In Africa, I joined groups. So I did like a tour group it was a safari through several countries. And then I was doing I was volunteering at a couple conservations in Namibia. And then I did another tour in Namibia. So, I mean, I wasn't like alone. Like I wasn't having to do too much fending for myself other than moving between these tour groups. But it was an experience of having to make new friends, and I wasn't staying in hotels, I was staying in tents. It was almost all camping. So I just like I saw the safari and I get very easily seduced by travel websites.
Hmm.
So I was on Intrepid and I'm like looking at the descriptions. I'm like, this is magical. I can't live without doing this. So I had to do the safari, but then there were these volunteer experiences on conservations. And my dream when I was little was to be Jeff Corwin, basically. Like I wanted to be an Animal Planet, star, um, like a conservationist or a zoologist. And obviously I became the opposite of that. So I was like, I don't know of another time when I'm going to get that kind of conservation, like hands-on animal experience. So yeah, so I wanted to do that too. And it wound up being a lot.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, like, you've always struck me, obviously, as kind of a girly girl. I don't see you living
Hmm.
in tents for 5 weeks. Is that tough for someone like you to do that?
I really see myself as contradictory in a lot of ways. Like I actually feel like I have a lot of masculine traits, but I present as femininely as possible.
Hmm.
So roughing it on its face isn't that big of a deal to me. I mean, I didn't even bring a razor. Now I had had laser hair removal, which only sort of works, so I wasn't a gorilla, but like I brought a toothbrush, toothpaste, floss, and two-in-one shampoo, like that, and then sunscreen. Like that's all I brought. So I'm not particularly high maintenance, but I do it was honestly hard feeling unattractive for 5 straight weeks. Like, that was in some ways that wasn't harder than the tents. The tents, I did not mind sleeping in a tent. What sucked was having to, like, take it down and put it up every day. That wore on me and, like, having to ask for help from that.
Wait, you
'Cause
had to do that every day? The tent just didn't stay up?
no, because we were moving all I mean, some days it would be there for 2 nights.
Oh, 2 nights. Okay.
Never more than 2 nights anywhere.
Oh.
Um, yeah, so I mean, like, dirt doesn't bother me, dust doesn't bother me too much. I don't need to be, like, clean all the time. I didn't bring makeup, any of that. But, um, yeah, I mean, it was kind of funny because the first stretch was for 18 to 35-year-olds, and the reason I did this budget it was called like a basics or a budget camping safari, was because I have no money. Like, I've just started a job that pays me an adult salary. This Friday, I get, like, my first, like my caseload isn't even built up yet, but I get, like, my first paycheck that's gonna feel like a real paycheck, you know? But in Africa, I had no money, so I signed on for this trip of, like, youngsters, so I was the oldest by several years.
Hmm.
And, like, most people there were, like, 22. So there was a part of me that felt kind of, like, older, and my body image was really bad last year because I gained a bunch of weight. I've now lost it. Um, but I that part of things, just, like, feeling unattractive, and then when people would find out I was on The Bachelor, because I would tell them eventually, and they'd always be like they'd look up my picture, they'd get super excited and be like, "Oh my god, you were really pretty."
What?
Thank you.
Yeah, it's just like, does that mean I'm not pretty now? Like, is that something you should say to somebody?
Well, then they'd be like, "Not that you're not now, but,
Yeah.
I really liked your hair, your long hair."
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I mean, it wore on me that I had always stayed in, like, hostels during travel when I was younger, and I had done couch surfing, like, I've been to Burning Man, I've done the tent thing, I've done Roughing It, but I think it's not so much that I'm girly, it's that I'm in my mid-30s, and those things are not as exciting to me anymore. I can't romanticize them as much. I'm
Hmm.
just like, "This is frustrating and it's getting old." So, that happened.
Well, not to mention, you were also away from your fiance for 5 weeks.
Yeah,
That couldn't have been fun.
that was a mean thing to do to him.
Yeah. Did you guys FaceTime? Where do you? I mean, you're staying in tents. Where do you charge your phone?
The camp would sometimes have, like, a charging port.
Okay.
Or the bus had chargers.
How
Yeah,
often did you guys FaceTime?
we never FaceTimed. We
Did you?
had an hour-long birthday call that, AT&T charged me, like, $300 for, because I had gotten I had gotten a temporary SIM card in Namibia, but the guy hadn't turned off my primary, and I didn't know you had to do that. So the international call got charged to AT&T instead of the SIM card. So yeah, we weren't doing a lot of talking. But the thing about Africa, it's not that it was a bad trip, it's that people really romanticize travel, and I'm totally guilty of this. And I think that people, when they come back from trips, are unwilling to talk about the parts that aren't amazing.
Yeah.
It's almost like they feel obligated to think it was the greatest thing that's ever happened to them. And I don't know if it's because I've traveled so much at this point where I'm like, the reality of travel is that it's hard. You know, you see amazing things and you do amazing things, but you also are away from, you're also small talking a lot. You're away from your friends and family. You're not in comfortable living situations. You're hot all the time. Like there'd be times when I was just, you know, they'd be like, okay, like let's visit this beautiful dune. Okay, now we're back at the camp. It's 97 degrees. We don't have anything to do for the next 4 hours. So just hang out in the sun. You know, it's like, that's not fun. It's just not fun. So sometimes I wish that people would be more realistic or honest about the fact that travel is a haul.
Well, just watching some of the pictures and the videos that you were posting, I mean, you did get to see some cool stuff. I mean,
Yeah.
you got to hang out with some, weren't you like, not face to face, but I mean, there were like lions in the distance and,
Not even in the distance. I mean, I was in a cheetah enclosure. I was 2 inches away from cheetahs, with no fence between us. I was feeding lions. I was carrying donkey heads, severed donkey heads to feed wild dogs with. I had a baboon ride on my shoulders and pick, I mean, there weren't actually insects in my hair, but like, you know, groom my hair.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
Did you get bitten a lot? There are bugs out there?
no, because it was winter and desert.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, that's good. I think that honestly, that would have bothered me the most. Just getting bug bitten all up and down my leg and arms.
Yeah.
That would drive me nuts. Anyway, well, it's interesting. I mean, to see that you did that for 5 weeks and you're back. You wanted to get it done before you started your job after you graduated. So congratulations on that. And now you're Dr. Jacqueline. And
Sure.
you're getting your first big boy paycheck this week. All right. Let's talk what we're bringing you on for, and that's Love is Blind, because you and I have not spoken about it. A few texts here and there after I would see, like, you post something on your story, and I would send you a text and either update you on something. But I want to go in order, and we're not going to sit here and discuss. I mean, when we talk about the couples, we will talk about stuff that they maybe said in the pods, but we're just going to talk about the couples in general and just go in order. The 5 couples that made it to, well, the 5 couples that did end up getting engaged, and then the first one. We're going to go in order, and let's start with Casey and Patrick, because they got engaged, and then we all know what happened. Casey has definitely taken a lot of heat from the fan base of this show for breaking up with a man, but literally at the same time love bombing him and straddling him and making out with him, all the while saying, I don't want to be with you. It was very confusing. I understand Patrick's confusion because that was not the right behavior it was almost like she didn't know how to break up with somebody. It seemed that it's simple as that. Like,
Yeah.
And also catering towards probably wanting to get a certain type of edit. Like, not come across as some cold bitch, but she almost kind of did by the way she went about the breakup. So when you were watching Casey and Patrick, were you like, what the fuck is she doing? Like, just break up with him. So we're all kind of sitting there.
No, I like heavily related to her. I mean, I think the obvious answer, right, is that that's not a great way to break up with somebody, and it was highly confusing. And we always hope that when we're breaking up with someone, we can give clarity and be honest. And she didn't do those things. So it's not like I'm going to applaud her and say that she did a good job. The reason I related to her is that my breakup with Ari was similar, but it was for different reasons. But I think what I related to was the compulsive physical touch
Mm.
and the inability to say the real thing. The major difference being I straight up wasn't allowed to say the real reason. And actually, if I could have, it would have made it a lot easier. Instead, I had to say something that was more hurtful, which is I'm just not that into you, which wasn't completely true.
Yeah.
But she, I think, was highly anxious. I don't think she was trying to get a specific edit, but I do think she was probably very aware of the edit she was going to get and didn't want that. I mean, the problem is that she was put in a difficult position as soon as he said that he was Asian and that he's been seen as unattractive to women because he's Asian.
Yeah.
Because that immediately puts her in a bind if she doesn't find him attractive. I find Asian men attractive. I don't find Patrick attractive. Okay. So if Patrick came out and then I didn't find him attractive, it wouldn't be because I don't find Asian men attractive. Some people of any race are not attractive. Some people find him attractive. I'm not saying he's like an unattractive, like ugly dude or anything like that, right? But she was always entitled to not find him attractive, no matter what his race is. But because that was the conversation, it immediately set her up to look racist.
Yeah.
And so that is an extra layer of anxiety that's already living on top of, oh my God, it turns out love's not blind.
Yeah.
I have to tell this person I don't find him attractive. So like, and that's not even enough to overcome the fact that I just agreed to marry him. Like that is such an agonizing thing to have to tell somebody. And then you add the TV cameras and then you add the race layer that of course she was terrified about her edit. So I think you see her absolutely flailing and then she's not repulsed by the guy, she's like she's almost like giving him more physical affection, maybe to erase the ugly truth. That was actually a pun. I didn't mean to say ugly, but the ugly truth meaning that like it's about attraction. So I think that was a compulsive self-soothing thing. And she didn't know how to say the truth.
And you think the truth was that she basically physically wasn't attracted to him. That ultimately was the main reason. There might have been other things that she was like, I don't know if this will work between us. But in hearing interviews that they have done post filming, they got engaged. That filming of them sitting down and her, straddling him and kissing him and basically ending it was the same day they got engaged. So it clearly seems like this was strictly she saw him and wasn't attracted to him.
Yeah, I mean, that's what she said on the reunion too. So I'm just going off of what she's saying.
Yeah.
And what's probably true.
Yeah. And it's tough. And then she never could say that to him in that moment. That was the tough part to watch.
Yeah, I mean, I'm guessing she's a people pleaser. It's very hard for her to say. I think women struggle with this in general, is like saying things to men, especially like that can engender a bad response. I don't think that a lot of women like hurting people. We're even biologically programmed to not insult men, a lot of the time, because it can, bring aggression and violence. I'm not saying any of this was conscious and it might have had nothing to do with it, but it's just like not surprising to me that she struggled with that breakup.
Yeah. And then we found out, and here's the thing, like we found out that Casey, moved on to Joe at some point briefly and then may have had something with one of the other guys during one of those parties that they all threw for each other. But something that I think a lot of people were on Patrick's side. There were very few people watching this show that were all like Team Casey. It was a lot of people felt bad for Patrick because they could see she just didn't want to tell him she wasn't attracted to him.
Yeah.
But once the interviews started happening and then the reunion airs, the whole thing about the ring was really weird because at the time, and I had asked you this, right? And I texted you about this, like, hey, because you're someone that was engaged and broke off an engagement by your choice.
Yeah.
And you chose to give the ring back, right?
Well, I was asked to give the ring back.
You were asked to give the ring back.
I didn't volunteer it.
If he didn't ask, would you have given it back?
No.
Oh, you wouldn't have?
Well, if he didn't ask, I mean, we were in you're saying like would I have volunteered it? I mean, probably not. For one thing,
Okay.
I didn't break up with him because I wasn't into him.
Yeah.
I broke up with him because he was emotionally abusing me. So I didn't really feel like I owed him the ring.
Oh, okay. And in Patrick's case,
Hmm.
it's just he wanted the ring back, and he just made a big deal out about it in his interviews, and it just didn't seem like I would totally understand if he bought her a ring and she ended the engagement and he asked for it back and she said, "No, you gave it to me, it's mine."
Yeah.
But this ring is given to them by the show. This isn't like The Bachelor. You don't
Yeah.
have to stay together for 2 years or else the ring has to be returned. This is the second they give the ring out, it is fair game to do whatever you want with it. I just thought it was really weird for him to ask
Was
for the ring
it?
back on something that he didn't purchase for her.
I posted on Instagram that I was like Team Patrick on that initially because I thought the scene had just aired where Anton had talked about spending $5,000 on Allie's ring. So I thought that
Yeah.
they made them pay for it. But since it was Netflix, I think that's a totally insane ask.
Request. Yeah,
Yeah.
it is. And maybe there are people, because I've only watched in season 6 and I don't know the track record for everybody that's ever been on the show, but I'm guessing there are probably people that lasted longer after that somebody did chip in and say, "Hey, Netflix gave us a ring, but I want to buy you something," and that's completely different. And that's what I was waiting to hear. Maybe because at that time we didn't know. I thought, well, maybe Patrick, while Netflix does give her a ring, maybe he gave her something else, and that's what he was asking for back. But no, it
Yeah.
was. And then they
Yeah,
have
that's
this basketball game over the ring, and then she ends up getting the ring back. It was just so stupid.
I was rooting for her. I remember that basketball game was actually suspenseful for me because I was like, please, like Patrick, miss.
Yeah, and it does seem like I think there are 2 women from this season that are destined to be on another reality show at some point. Probably something along the lines of some sort of dating, or maybe even, I don't know, maybe they go on the challenge just because. But I think Casey and Allie are 2 women that I'd be stunned if we don't see them on reality TV in the
Because they're the
future.
hottest ones.
I just think that they are tailor made for reality TV. Their looks, number one, but I think they are good drama. And let's just face it. I mean, obviously, these reality shows love casting good looking women. Casey was, whatever you think of her, she was good TV. And she gave a reality TV
True.
show
She's
exactly
sexy.
what they wanted. She's sexy.
No, I mean,
Allie,
she like sexed it, like she did phone sex.
well, wall sex. Yeah. Yeah. The
Well,
whole wall. Yeah. She did the wall sex thing, which was, again, that was kind of totally out of left field. That was really, I don't know. I mean, maybe it happens more often and they just chose to show her. I don't know how the editing
that made me
works
want
on
to
this
stab my
particular show.
eyebrow.
Yeah. It was
But I also
just,
kind of liked it, which is good TV, right?
yeah. I mean, it was it was kind of cringy to watch because you're doing it with somebody that, again, you physically have never seen. I mean, just the concept of this show is kind of utterly ridiculous to begin with. We have to take that into consideration when we talk about any of these couples, that they decided to marry somebody and accept a proposal from somebody that they had physically never seen. Like, that just doesn't, if this was normal, it would be happening all the time in the real world. It doesn't happen in the real world. You don't, even if you hook up with somebody on the first night that you meet them, that's completely different because you've seen them, you've physically interacted with them, you know how they look, you know how they talk, they walk, how they smell. That can turn somebody on. This is just weird to accept a proposal from somebody you physically never seen, because you wouldn't do that in
Well,
normal
I think it would
life.
be great if it worked, but clearly the hypothesis of the show has been disproven every time because every
A
single
lot of
time
times,
there's an
yeah.
attraction, well, every time there's an attraction issue, they don't make it. I mean, every time. I cannot think of a
Yeah.
single time there's been an attraction issue that they've wound up making it work.
Yeah. Where they were like absolutely attracted to you, but no, not my person. It just seems to be like they see them and are like, oh, yeah, maybe not
I
what
mean,
I
I think the
expected.
good part of the show is that I mean, if they just let them date from then on, it would be interesting in terms of, oh, these are 2 people who have built a really great emotional foundation based off of things other than looks. And then if they then happen to be attracted to each other, then that's great, right? That seems to be able to create some good relationships, but it's not a very good strategy because most of these people still break up anyway. But the point is, like, it has been proven by the show over and over again that attraction is paramount. You can fall in love without it, but once it's not there, the love is dead.
And I think with this show, this is the premise of the show. They're never going to change it. They're never going to allow you to see. I mean, they don't even like you talking. The whole Patrick and Casey stuff about the fact that he was Asian even get brought up almost kind of defeats the purpose of the show. You're basically supposed to not know anything physically about the other person, but that's not going to change. It's just a weird concept, and maybe it needs to be given more time, because when they go on their trip, their post engagement trip, I think that's a week, and then when they move them back to the city, I think it's 3 weeks. It's just like this time crunch of, you have to know within 3 weeks whether or not you want to marry this person. It's like, really? Okay. Yeah. Like, it's really tough to. It's amazing that any woman have actually ever worked out on this show, and it's almost like luck.
This is the thing I don't like about the Netflix universe shows, is that, The Bachelor, everyone always said was a stupid concept, and it kind of is, but the stakes are so much more appropriate on The Bachelor. You actually meet each other, you actually meet each other's families, and then you just get engaged. Yeah. That's it. And then you only have to go underground for 4 months, not a year and a half, and then you can stay together, you can do whatever you want, right? Like, it's not the end of the world to have a failed engagement. I would know. But to have to get married after 3 weeks or whatever, that is insane and completely inappropriate. And it's just setting up people to fail. So it's hard to root sometimes for these shows.
Yeah. Well, moving on to the next couple, speaking of looks, Joe and Madison, which they're an interesting couple because I think a lot of people were obviously on Madison's side. They didn't appreciate the things that Joe said. She's typically not somebody. I typically go for more. I don't know if he used the word petite, but he basically insinuated that I don't go for women who look like her. Their whole meltdown in Mexico, where Joe was completely drunk, and it seemed like Joe was drunk a lot of the time on this show. I also saw people get down and jump down Madison's throat for the Mexico behavior because she was just clearly dealing with somebody who was drunk, and she took everything he was saying so literally, where she could have just said, you know what, you're drunk, I'm sleeping outside tonight. And it just kept going on, and she was looking for answers from a drunk person that you're never going to get when you deal with somebody that's drunk. I talked about it at the time it was happening. I talked about it on the podcast. I said, look, one of my biggest pet peeves is when I'm sober, which is pretty much 99% of the time, and I'm dealing with somebody who's drunk. It drives me up a wall because you're not going to get anywhere with that person. And especially anything deep, just forget it. I'm not talking the rest of the night until you sober up, because it's only going to lead to an argument. It's going to lead to some sort of fight. And even the next day when I come back and said, you said this, this, and this, you're not going to remember it because you were drunk. So it can only lead to bad things. And it seemed like Madison was taking everything he said very literally, when it was just like, hey, he's drunk. Leave him alone. Go to the other room. You're not going to get anything accomplished.
Yeah. Well, first of all, his comment that he normally dates petite women, I feel like was a direct setup in his ITM. So I don't really want to bash him for that. I'm sure he was directly asked, is she...
What type of women do you date?
Yeah. Does she look like the women you normally date?
Yeah.
I am guessing he did have an issue with that, though, because I don't buy it for a second that he didn't have an attraction problem. I know he said that on the reunion, and clearly they had a lot of sex, and so he was able to overcome it in a way. But the way that he responded to her, that after, in the first days in Mexico, it just felt like he was shut off to her in a way. Like, it felt like he was uncomfortable with her physically. But maybe he wasn't trying. I don't know. But then he made it for Casey, which it just, yeah.
Do you think he was trying to find an out? Like he was planting the seeds for an out on this?
But with the attraction thing or with other things?
Yeah. No, with the attraction thing.
My guess is that he was sexually attracted to her, but I wonder if he is very image conscious himself and feels like he should be with a thinner woman. That's
Hmm.
my a bit of my hypothesis, because they clearly didn't have a problem in the bedroom, but he did make a point of commenting on it. He then goes for Casey. He feels like he's looking for an out the entire time they're together. He doesn't act drawn to her, and it felt like he was looking for an out the second the doors opened. And when it doesn't happen a little bit later, like you can just see the couples that are genuinely trying and the couples that are like, oh my God, what have I gotten myself into? And
Yeah.
he seemed like the latter. Anyway, yeah, she probably should have realized that he was just drunk and that she was going to get nowhere with him. She also probably should have been concerned because he was not acting like a normal drunk person.
Yeah.
It felt a little bit like an anxious avoidant dynamic where she's just like needing feedback from him and not able to just accept that he's not going to give it to her until he sobers up. But also, like, to defend her, she has just been in this experience where she's been told that she's loved for who she is. Then she meets this guy. He's giving her weird signals of having sex with her, but then feeling off with her. Then he gets drunk and is pulling away from her, as clearly isn't giving her any attention or interest. And it's like people who are drunk give data. It's not always good data, but it's kind of interesting data. Like his inhibitions are down, and the way he chooses to behave when his inhibitions are down is to like sharply pull away from her. That would have made me anxious too. And then I think I see her kind of wrestling with like that emotional discomfort versus like, oh, but what he's saying is that he's into me. He's saying that everything's okay. So that's going to make you feel crazy very quickly.
I think with Joe, and I'm still to this day, I don't even know if I know why he ended it. I think on their breakup, she was still looking for some sort of clarity. I think she was holding on to something that also wasn't there. And she has said she's done a lot of, again, this was 18 months ago. She's done a lot of therapy since then, and she realizes that she shouldn't have been pushing for something that wasn't there.
Yeah.
But on that breakup that they did have, I feel like he was also the male version of Casey in that breakup, in that I just feel like he didn't want to tell her he wasn't attracted to her.
Yeah, that's
because he was giving her, because he realized he was also giving her plenty of sex, and it just didn't vibe. It didn't make sense. I think that's probably why she was confused, because their sex life was fine according to her, and it was great according to her, and yet he's pulling away and saying, I don't want to be with you.
But this is the problem with the show, right? Like the show invites on really young contestants who, don't fully know themselves or know how to be in good relationships. And then it asks too much of them. So as soon as there's an attraction issue, then you are at war with the point of the show, and you're immediately in a villain position. People are going to say, why'd you go on the show if attraction is so important to you? Well, because you're a really good looking, like 27-year-old who has the shot to be famous. And it's like, here's a once in a lifetime opportunity. That's why people go on the show. It doesn't mean they're not open to it. And some people go on for different reasons, but someone like Joe, like, I'm going to guess that has that's a big part of things. But regardless, right, even if people go on with really genuine intentions, attraction does matter. The show has proven that. So when you happen to not be attracted to your partner, you're thrown into a villain sphere. Oh God, I betrayed the whole reason I'm here. I betrayed the show. Like, I'm the shallow one. And now I'm on TV. And now I have to break someone's heart that I just proposed to over something that's supposedly in this universe superficial. It sucks. So Joe has no communication skills. Like he can't finish sentences. Madison pointed this out. Everyone, could see it.
Yeah.
So yeah, he was giving her crazy mixed signals. But what happens when you give someone mixed signals is they go crazy because they don't know how to make sense of what you're saying and what you're communicating, right? So she doesn't know what reality she's in. So she's feeling crazy. So she starts acting in ways that are probably even more unattractive to him. I mean, this is kind of the anxious avoidance dance too, right? The more crazy making, the more maddening this is to her, the more aggressive, and I mean that lightly, right? She's going to get, because it's like, she just wants to shake him, like, make this make sense. Be straight with me. What is going on? And then he's going to pull away further. And then all of a sudden he has to make it all of a sudden he's trying on tuxes and he's freaking out. I mean,
well, one of the couples, next couple to move on to that I kind of did a 180 on in terms of who I liked out of the couple in the start versus the end was Nick and Annie. I think a lot of people were anti-Nick in the pods, and they were not a fan of the LGBTQ conversation that he had, asking Annie about if you had a gay child, what would you do? Now, since that came out, both of them have done interviews where they said that that conversation was completely chopped up. It was edited. That's not the way it came across. So I don't want to dive into that. But just the fact that it was brought up, Nick told the story about how in high school he was back in his room and his door was closed and his mom would question his sexuality, and it was being brought up. Everybody knows that it was being brought up online. Everybody was questioning him. And then we get to Mexico with them, and then for the longest time, Annie, like everyone was just anti-Nick and just like, what is Annie seeing in this guy? And then it kind of turned because Annie, again, seemed to be holding on to a relationship and needing constant, and we only saw what they chose to show us. I'm guessing it was more times where she was telling him, I need to know how you feel. I love you so much. I just don't feel like you love me as much as I love you. Like, again, as a man being in that position, you're in a lose-lose because what are you going to say? It seems like nothing you say was going to be good enough for Annie in that moment. What were you thinking when Annie was constantly saying this to him and constantly needing validation that, yes, I want to be with you?
Yeah. I'm sure that exhausted him, and that is a red flag. I think when she would do that, she was asking him for something that he couldn't provide because he didn't feel the way she wanted him to feel, which was all in. And he was appropriately not all in. But again, because of this show, it's very confusing to have someone propose to you who is not all in. So I think they're set up for failure again. I mean, I could tell when she was saying these things what she wanted and that he was not providing it. So it never surprised me that she kept pushing it. She's basically wanting to hear, yes, I'm with you. Oh my God, I'm in this. I promise. I love you too. I don't want you to be worried, but I see that you are. And like, what can I do to help? Right. He had a much more removed clinical, not a lot of, and I don't say this in a bad way, but like not a ton of like warmth or connectivity there. And then I think she was just like, I think that was making her a little bit crazy, but then it's making him crazy that he's in this position constantly.
Yeah. And it seemed like she was drinking a lot too during this.
He knows, okay, like this isn't going to go anywhere either. And again, even at those points, it was a little bit like, all right, why are we engaging this? Right. But yeah. It was not good.
Yeah. She was, and there were a couple scenes of it. Them, I think in Mexico, and them at the counter when he was trying to eat his chalupa or whatever he was saying. He's like, I'm just trying to eat my food, and you're just badgering me with, I love you so much, Nick. I'd marry you tomorrow, Nick, and I just don't feel like I'm getting that from you. And he's just like telling her, I want to be with you. This is good. And, looking back on it now, he was probably like just saying that in the moment.
I mean, she's someone who, this is what I'm guessing, is just from what, she can't tolerate anxiety. She can't tolerate uncertainty. And so she's being eaten up by this anxiety of, is this really going to happen? Does he really love me? I can't tell, because on the one hand, he proposed to me, and on the other hand, he's not willing to say that we're actually getting married. Like, that is anxiety right there. That is a very difficult reality to live in. But the problem is that you need to be able to regulate that and tolerate that uncertainty if you're going to go on the show.
So here we go to the next couple, because I think Annie and Nick. I mean, when you look at this overall,
yeah,
there were not a lot of likable couples. Not saying these people aren't likable, but I think as all of us were watching this, now knowing the end result, I don't think a lot of people were surprised. People were just like, I don't see any of these couples making it. It just doesn't seem like there's a connection here. There's one that I think if there was a couple to make it from this show, there's one out there that I think most people thought they are the most likely out of these 6 that they've given us that have chosen to get engaged and then go to Mexico. Well, obviously Casey and Patrick didn't, but the 5 after that.
Yeah.
It's like, okay.
I imagine you're saving them for last.
Because they were the last breakup. And that's the one that people thought if there was a couple to make it, it would be them.
Yeah.
So let's move on to Anton and Allie. And I think Anton and Allie were a couple that when I'm watching it, for those that don't know, I brought it up in my podcast. You know, Anton and Allie literally got engaged 45 minutes into the first episode, which has never happened before. I think beginning of the second episode is the earliest we've ever seen an engagement. But for those that don't know, everybody that gets engaged on the show gets engaged on the same day. It's just the way that it's edited. They just happened to show Anton and Allie's quickly. I guess they wanted to lure people in that first episode. Like, oh, wow, gonna be a successful season. Look at how quickly these two. But when they did that, I felt like I've got, as a viewer, no connection to these two. I was like, how? We just didn't get enough of them. Because when somebody gets engaged in episode 5, you've clearly seen so many more conversations that they've had with each other. Versus Anton and Allie, it was so rushed. It seemed like it was weird, for people that couldn't see each other, surface level, physical. And then as we see them in Mexico and then back in Denver, you're like, okay, this is why they're not going to make it. It was clear as day that they were on different wavelengths as well. What was your take on Anton and Allie?
To be honest, I think that maybe I got distracted every time they were on the screen because I don't have a lot of thoughts, and I was kind of surprised when they didn't make it, but I don't think that was because I don't think I was doing like a lot of analyzing of them. I mean, I feel like
we knew them the least. I feel like they got the least amount of airtime.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, when you think about it, that we did, because after episode 1, they weren't shown from episode 2 to 5 because there was no reason to show them. They were already engaged. So, yeah.
It seems like they were each other's types to a degree. I know you think maybe she's looking for somebody a little bit heftier in the wallet.
Yeah. Well, I mean, she's made it known that she's seemingly interested in guys with money.
Oh, has she?
Well, I just thought that's the way she came across, wasn't it?
Yeah, like, I didn't know if you knew anything about like interviews or something.
Oh, I haven't seen her say. Again, it's nothing wrong. I think if women are used to dating men with money, it is tough for them to step back and not date men with money. I think what was Chris Rock's, one of his famous lines? Men can't go backwards sexually, women can't go backwards financially. And I think there is some truth to that. If you only date a certain type of man who is living a certain lifestyle, that doesn't have to be lavish, but money is not an issue. I think it would be very hard for a woman to then date, I don't know, the manager at Home Depot. Not saying there's no shade against somebody who manages Home Depot, but a guy who makes enough to just get by every month versus money's not an issue for us. We're going everywhere you want to go. We'll take trips. It's very hard to step back from that. I don't necessarily disagree with it at all.
I think women step back from that all the time, but they maybe don't step all the way back. And I don't know how much money he made. I mean, I know that, trucking as an industry pays pretty well. That's why it's a big deal that AI is taking it over. But I don't know what their situation would have been. But yeah, I mean, the values wanting somebody to take care of her. And it seemed like every single conversation they had was about like housework or money.
Yeah.
So it was kind of hard to see what their connection was, I guess.
Yeah. I didn't see what their connection was once they got to Mexico. Because like you said, it was 45 minutes into the first episode. We're like, oh, shit, they're getting engaged? All right. Well, I don't seem to know much about them, so let's see when they're actually interacting, seeing each other. And in Mexico, I don't think they had any issues in Mexico. It seemed like things were fine there. It was everything. Then they got back to Denver and started their lives. And she, I believe she's in the nursing industry, so she had those late hours. He had the late hours, and he just wants to come home and chill. And she wants to come home and not do anything. But just the comments that she was making about, oh, I expect a $10,000 ring, and I'm not cleaning up. That's not my job. Like, it seemed like there was a certain type of man that she was after.
Yeah.
Just by her
comments. With my $10,000.
The same type of man that you're looking for. That's exactly what it is.
And I did date wealthy men. That was definitely my type. I mean, I think women step back from it all the time because wealthy men are difficult to date in other ways. But
when you say step back, and you say women do step back from dating higher up and then they take a step back but not step back fully, what do you mean?
I mean, I think
that?
I think it's very common for women in their 20s to date millionaires and then wind up with someone who makes $200,000 or maybe even $100,000. I don't think they're going to step back and be with someone who makes $60,000.
Okay. But like you said, it is hard to find, millionaires that are going to want to. It's not easy to just find someone.
I found many of them, but they were difficult in other ways.
Do they tend to have an insecurity that you're only with them for their money?
No, I don't, and I wasn't, but I think that if you are a millionaire, you're often self-focused. You have to pour a lot into your work. You do have a lot of options. A lot of wealthy men cheat. You see this with clients. Like, a lot of wealthy men have a lot of access to women. They have a lot of business meetings. They've got more, the more you spend at work, right? Like, work often is dinners and parties and all sorts of things that take you away from the home. And like, a lot of men who become millionaires because they're self-focused people. They're superstars, right? And it's difficult to be with superstars because they don't often have a lot of bandwidth for other people to shine.
Interesting.
And they can be entitled.
Yeah. All right, the final two couples to get to. And I wouldn't say we have a giant disagreement on this, but I know that we definitely have differing opinions on this. And Edmund and KB, I am someone that doesn't think Edmund should have done the show. Yeah. I think the show exploited him. I think they saw that they had a quirky character because he's quirky. There's no doubt about that. The guy laid on the ground and was licking the ground in the men's quarters. It just was like, why? He jumped up and down after the engagement, and the way he dresses, he's eccentric, to say the least. And I also felt he was a 15-year-old in a 30-year-old's body. But no, it wasn't surprising given his trauma background. In and out of foster homes, I'm guessing this guy did not have a lot of stability in his life. And I'm just wondering, you have been on reality TV, what they put you through to get cast on a show like this. I just felt like, unless he wasn't being honest on his application and in his interviews, which I don't think he had any reason to lie, I just think that this show saw a traumatic past of this guy and figured, we're not going to not cast him because of that. If anything, we're going to make sure he gets on the show and he's a featured cast member. I just feel like they took advantage of a guy that clearly was not emotionally intelligent enough to not only be engaged and possibly get married, but probably isn't ready to be in a relationship right now. I think he's got a lot to sort through. That's my take. I know you disagree, so chime in on it.
But I mean, I don't, I respect your opinion. I think there's definitely I don't rabidly disagree. I mean, I think that you could make a good case that if you're actually looking to get people married, it's maybe irresponsible to put somebody like him on the show because of the effect that actually would have on like KB, that you're not necessarily giving a viable marriageable option for the women here because he needs to do a lot of work. But I mean, I think in terms of exploiting him, I have fewer concerns for a lot of reasons. One is like, okay, on The Bachelor, the psych assessment they do is the MMPI, and then they have a psychologist basically like ask you random questions from it that actually seem to be more from a liability standpoint than a "Are you okay?" standpoint. I didn't experience it as like a thorough psychological assessment, and I'm guessing Love Is Blind doesn't do that either. So I'm not really sure what production would have like expertly known about him or like how thorough that assessment would have been. But that's just sort of an aside. The main reason is that I don't think you want to go down the road of excluding people for having trauma backgrounds. I mean, plenty of people with trauma backgrounds get married and have successful relationships, or they have difficult relationships, but that doesn't mean they shouldn't have them. And it's really hard to demarcate where you exclude people where you don't. But the place that I would, if I were to demarcate it, I would look at resilience. When this person gets pushed down, do they get back up again? Or do they go into really dangerous mental health symptoms like self-harm or deep depression or suicidality? And what I saw repeatedly from Edmund was that he had pretty strong resilience. He cried a lot, he was emotionally dysregulated, but he bounced up quickly every time, even at the altar during what is, for many of these contestants, maybe one of the most humiliating moments of their lives. He had a big emotional show, and then actually it wound up being one of the nicest altar breakups I've ever seen. He didn't storm away. She didn't storm away. They actually took care of each other at the altar. They hugged. He started smiling. He said kind things about her. And then he went and he was comforted by somebody in his life that was a secure figure. So I would be worried about with exploitation, I would be worried about somebody like putting them in a dangerous situation, like a suicidal situation, but I don't really have that concern for him based on what I've seen. And I think, like the eccentricity and all that, I mean, he is eccentric, and that was what I personally loved about him. And the emotional immaturity aspect, like there are a lot of emotionally immature men out there.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not like he's some unicorn when it comes to that, for sure, especially on reality TV dating shows.
Right. And even if he has autism, which I know has been kicked around, I'm based, by the way, like in no way an autism expert. I know next to nothing about it, but like I don't think that disqualifies him either. It means that he might be looked at a little bit differently, but it's also good to show that kind of diversity.
Yeah, I think, I mean, they actually, especially at the reunion, it was kind. Like it wasn't contentious at all. They were one of the few that did not have any sort of back and forth. Now she still would go to him with, and I really actually liked KB's argumentative style. Like when she had conversations with him and she argued with him, she didn't just throw stuff out. She always backed it up. Always. She even did it at the reunion with facts of, Edmund, when I did this, you did this, and this in return. Like, that's not okay. And she would always give examples. Now, Edmund in return would then just sit there and take it and then just say, but I love you so much. And it just didn't seem like, and then she would say, like, that's exactly what I don't need in this moment is for you to just say, it's almost like he just wanted to get past the argument so she wouldn't be mad at him anymore. And that's what I mean when I say, like, I just don't think he's emotionally ready to be in a relationship, because I saw him react when somebody confronted him about the things that he said and was doing wrong, and he wouldn't agree. He would just be like, but I love you so much.
I agree from that standpoint. I also don't think he was emotionally ready to be in a relationship, but I don't think that separates him from many of the men who go on these shows that we don't say should have been excluded. Like most men on reality TV, I shouldn't say most, but like many are not emotionally ready. And some of them are basically abusive. I don't think is emotionally ready, but I didn't see him as being abusive. I love KB. I mean, you're getting no disagreement from me there. There were a couple of things like when she was encouraging him to be, to like fight some dude in a club if he like looked at her the wrong way, that I'm not going to like stand behind. But I don't agree that Edmund was being manipulative when he cried, but I do understand why she used that word. And I think actually that we need just another word to maybe describe that phenomenon. Because you're right, what he was probably doing is feeling, ow, this is uncomfortable, make it go away. I'll say the thing that maybe will make it go away, which is different from manipulation, because I don't think it was particularly intentional or designed or like trying to control her in any way. I think it was more avoidance. But I think
And like a lot of people think, and I'm sure you probably think this way, in terms of KB's attraction towards Edmund and what drew him to her, the fact that she was a social worker. Do you think? I think a lot of people thought like, well, she thinks that she's been around this. She thinks that she can fix him. She feels almost a sense of, she feels sorry for him as well, and she is a social worker, and she's probably dealt with people like him, and that's why she was attracted to him, because of her line of work.
I'm sure it played in. I mean, I think it's tough when we see, our job is to be empathic and to see the best in everybody. Like, I do a lot of couples therapy. I have to see the best in people who cheat on their wives. That's a moral infraction. I'm not talking about his, but the point is that your job is to be very low judgment, to see the best in people, to have hope for people. And so, it doesn't surprise me that she would be like drawn in by a trauma history. I really liked actually you had a therapist, I think a couples therapist on a few weeks ago. I saw a video where she talked about this, where she's like, I think KB confused emotional, maybe like dysregulation or like
his emotions that he showed when she was like, thank you so much for being vulnerable with me, and she said that wasn't vulnerability, that was just him showing emotions, and she took that for vulnerability.
Well, it wasn't availability, it was vulnerable maybe, but or vulnerable. I think a lot of women are like, oh my God, he's crying, he's willing to open up, he's telling me these vulnerable things. That means that he's communicative, he's not toxically masculine, he's not going to wall me off and all of these things, but they're discounting that true availability actually means like taking responsibility for your emotions and being able to regulate and self-soothe and be able to talk from a place of emotion without just giving emotion and asking another person to sort through it for you.
Yeah, I thought that was definitely an interesting take by Dr. Amy Lombardi, who came on, couples therapist for 25 years in Chicago. She had some really good takes on this franchise on her TikTok. So let's end with this. The final couple, Jordan and Megan. And I have been talking to you. I've known you for...
This is gonna be good.
I've known you for, probably coming up on 7, 8, 9 years, something like that. When did you film Paradise? What year was that?
I don't know, but I was...
Summer of
It was
what?
2018, I think.
2018. Okay, so we're coming up on 7 years since I've known you. And we've talked on this podcast numerous times. We've texted numerous times. We've voice memoed times, plenty of times. You are very highly intellectual when it comes to reality show contestants. You're very critical. You have a very critical eye when it comes to reality show contestants.
Yeah.
There are very few reality show contestants that I think you even like.
I don't know.
I mean, here and there, but the the pedestal that you have put Jordan on, you have made it very clear on your Instagram stories. Yeah. You're a very big fan of Jordan. So much to the point where you think he should be the next Bachelor. You literally called him the best reality show contestant you've ever seen.
Is that true?
And I
just Ames Brown.
Who?
Ames Brown. Remember him from The Bachelor?
Oh, Ames. Oh, I didn't know you said that about Ames. Okay. God, that was years ago. That was like 15 years ago. But anyway, I've just never seen you glaze someone like you glazed Jordan in this situation. And look, I'm not saying like, what are you thinking, Jacqueline? I was just surprised at the level that you put him at, or why you think he was so good. So I'll just let you, for people that did not see your Instagram story, explain why you think Jordan Keltner is the greatest reality show contestant you've ever seen.
First of all, I don't know if he's the greatest reality contestant I've ever seen, but he is definitely up there. I would put like Joey Graziati up there too, actually. I think he's awesome too. But Jordan does, I think he would be
check a lot of boxes for you. For sure.
Yeah, he checks a lot of boxes. And first of all, I want to say, like, I am not like personally, like have a boner for Jordan. Like, I'm not like, this isn't about me having a crush on him, which was true.
Yeah, no,
so, that's been, and Nick Viall back in the day.
You had a crush on Nick back in the day?
Yeah, that's why I went on The Bachelor in the first place, because my friend nominated me for Nick's season, but I got punted over into Ari's season, which was good. I mean, we're grateful for that. I know. Look, I've recanted and repented.
Yeah, I was going to say. I mean,
anyway,
you and I wouldn't be friends if you still thought that way about Nick.
I mean, I don't have a problem with Nick, to be clear. But anyway, look, you brought up before we started that, of course, part of this is that I'm engaged to a single dad, and yes. I see a lot of Jason in Jordan. And I see a lot of myself in Megan too. So it was a little bit like watching a version, like my personality isn't that similar to Megan. Well, I don't know. It was like watching a version of us on screen, right? Like rifling through these issues. So I have sympathy for both people. But I think that Jordan was very emotionally available and really took accountability for his actions. I think he was very regulated. He was like unfailingly respectful. Him getting drunk with the boys and paying more attention to them than to me would have irritated me too. I get that. Him not wanting to talk about his day and kind of be quiet when he got home would irritate me too. So like the same things that irritated her would have gotten to me too. But in general, I mean, I think I just really liked his energy, his vibe. He had a very, very secure vibe. Like, I think the story you're referencing when I said he should be the Bachelor is when I talked about him as being an antidote to toxic masculinity. I hear a lot about what men should be instead. And I think a lot of men get stuck on this, like, I need to be confident and assertive, and I need to be a leader, and I need to be like really masculine and strong and like, fight guys in the club if they touch my girl, like these sort of things that are superficially masculine and strong, but actually usually are held by weaker, insecure men. Jordan felt like somebody who is secure, which I think is what we need to encourage people to be in general. He could regulate when his feelings were hurt. He was able to put himself in her perspective and basically say, like, especially the conversation she had, which was her turning point, right? When she said, I have another connection. Mike, spread his peacock feathers and tried to make a power move. Jordan immediately pivoted into empathy and was regulated and basically said, oh, that's so good for you, right? Like, I hope that, or like that might be different. I don't remember what he said, but it was an empathic response that showed he's not protecting himself in this moment. He's actually like taking care of her. And the fact that he could extend himself in what should be a difficult moment for him was really nice. And he did that with humor, with a kind of like masculine security of, I've got me. You don't have to worry about me. I've got me. Like that was the sense he had throughout the whole show. I've got me. I take care of me. If you want to come along and be part of this and I'll be part of you, that's great. If you don't, that's okay. Taking very good care of his son, really respecting his son. The fact that he just did that TikTok with his baby mama, who's like crazy hot. That was such a power move. I was like really into that. He's like really good friends with the mother of his child. That is so rare, like that they have a fully communicative, respectful relationship where he's friends with her husband is like, that's so healthy. Like, it's so healthy, it almost felt like Netflix tried to make him seem insecure about Meg's money. Like in all of the clips that it would show in previews, it would show a partial quote of his that made it seem like when they walked through the house and he was like, this seems like a little bit too much house. And then you see the actual quote and he wasn't saying stuff like that. He was mainly saying like, like it's okay if she provides all this isn't what I need necessarily. He had a very like measured, like acknowledging that it's unusual for him to be the poorer one in the dynamic, but basically saying like, I'm okay with her money. I don't need it. She doesn't need to worry about me, but if this is what she wants, that's okay. It just felt like he had a really adult response to a lot of things, and he was only 29 years old, which I know is supposed to be an adult, but I think for most men is not actually quite adulthood a lot of the time.
But
what am I missing?
He makes chicken and Crystal Light smoothies.
That's disgusting, but it's also really funny.
Yeah. No, I mean, that was one of the weirder parts of the season that he did that. But I'm not going to obviously hold that against him. It's just something that little quirk of his that I think a lot of people would just be like scratching their head about, like, chicken and Crystal Light. But no, I'm not saying I disagree with any of that. Because as I'm watching the show, it was really the only couple that I was rooting for.
Yeah.
It was the only couple that I was like, I wonder if they do make it. And then obviously the story got out and you could tell, obviously the production team knew from the time they filmed the show to the time the show started airing, they knew that Megan had had a baby. So there's a reason they left in the quote of her saying, maybe I'm not out to be a mother. Like, they literally ended the season. I think that was the last line we heard of this season before the reunion show.
Yeah.
Because they saved Jordan and Megan's breakup for last. And Megan in her ITM is literally saying, maybe I'm not ready to be a mother. And I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah. I felt bad for her too.
Slick move by them.
Yeah.
I mean, what was your take on Megan when you were watching it? Did you think, because there were a lot of people that were anti-Megan that were watching this show and just thought that she came across as, I don't know, elitist, snobbish. And I don't know, I never saw it with her. I don't think she ever flaunted her money. She made it known, I'm successful. I mean, why would a woman hide that? I mean, I guess in society, sometimes women feel weird.
Have to hide that because other women will attack them for it. Yeah.
And that's what the dislike was about Megan, I think, by the public, is just, we just don't like women with money. And it just seems very dumb to.
It's the same thing. It's the same thing that happens when they're smart women who dare to talk about books on reality TV, right? Like, other women are the ones who come and criticize them. It's really sad. It happens every time. I don't know. It's like women have been trained to like eat each other alive or something, but she talked about her money in pretty appropriate ways. Also, like, how is she not going to talk about that? It's like when Madison Arakello got lambasted for talking about her trauma, or for like trauma dumping. It's like, are you like, you're trying to get married to somebody in a month? Like, are you not going to talk about these things? Whatever. She probably, first of all, like, people calling her elitist is such an irritating thing on the face, because who cares? Like, who cares if she has expensive taste? Who cares if she hangs out with rich people or goes to rich schools or goes to rich restaurants? Like, most of us want to do those things.
Well, it sounds like the people that are upset at that are the people that can't experience that themselves. There's a form of jealousy there when watching Megan on screen.
Yeah, and I felt the same thing about Casey at the reunion when they were like piling on Casey for being the object of affection of multiple men from that show. It's like, this happens every season. People date afterwards. I'm sorry, she's attractive. Like, and she probably has a flirtatious energy, and she gets probably more positive feedback from men than women, and then she goes for that, and yada, whatever. Megan was put in an impossible position of deciding whether she wants to be a stepmom to a 5-year-old in 4 weeks. That's an unreasonable timeline. The only thing I don't understand is why they did not continue dating after the show. I listened to Nick's The Vial Files episode with them, and I'm like, how could you not ask this question? It's the most obvious question, because everything she said about why she didn't want to get married was that she didn't have enough time to know these things. And then he was coming home and he wasn't particularly talkative. And she's like, oh my God, is this what it's going to be forever? Take the time to find out. You don't have to break up at the end of the show. But yeah, I mean, look, like, Jason and I fight over lifestyle stuff more than we fight about anything else. And we don't fight a lot, to be clear. That kind of made it sound like we do. But we fight about travel. Like, I want to be going and traveling and doing these things. And he either can't or is too anxious to do it because he has a lot of responsibility. It feels like the world is on his shoulders, and it's hard to let yourself relax and do indulgent things when that's the case. What made me sad about them is that I know that these things can be worked through, but when you have 3 weeks or 4 weeks or whatever it is, you don't know that. But it's like they even said on the podcast, you know, if she wanted to fund his lifestyle, then maybe things could have worked out that way. But he can't operate on that premise while the show is going. They're not married yet, you know, and he has to be his own man through that. So it was just sad. It's like, why don't you guys want to take the time to figure some of this stuff out? And like, but you know, like my stepkid is 17 and hers was going to be 5. That's a big difference. And
yeah. No, I think that, and at this point, obviously things have worked out. I know Jordan has said on Nick's podcast, like, "Hey, I'm single." I don't know what Nick's infatuation was. You watched that interview. I just was so weirded out almost by Nick basically telling Jordan, "Go be a fuckboy, dude." Like, it was really weird. He just kept harping on it. Like, take advantage of it, man. You got all these women sliding in your you must have women sliding in your DMs. Go be. Nick, leave him alone. Let him live his fucking life. It was so weird. God, that guy's annoying.
Well, it's just out of character for Jordan, you know, and so I think that's what's especially strange about it. It's like, no, Jordan's saying that he's very intentional and that he's not in a place in his life where that's interesting to him. So, like, that's what we all love about him. Let him go be Jordan.
Yeah, no, it was. I didn't think there was a ton of new stuff that they revealed on Nick's podcast, but they did cover a lot of things. But Megan had done interviews. She has since done Caitlin's podcast. I think she did AD's podcast, the Love is Blind official podcast. So we know where everyone stands. And look, both of them are they were the only parents that were on this experiment this season. So it makes sense to me now, because one of my questions was, the fact that Megan was able to keep that private from everybody, and this did not get out until the week before the reunion aired, it was pretty amazing, considering the second anybody gets announced to be on a reality TV show, you got the losers on Reddit that literally just go scouring through their whole childhood to find any personal thing that they could bring out against this person. I'm stunned that she was able to, at that point, the cast was released on the first episode came out on October 1st. The cast came out on September 10th. As far as I know, from September 10th until that Sun story came out on Megan,
yeah,
it wasn't out there that this woman had a child since filming ended and not with somebody from the show. I'm stunned.
And she clearly sacrificed relationships with the other castmates for it, to keep that secret. So
yeah.
I hope that Paul, her current guy, is a great dude. I think what I found really compelling about their whole story is that she's basically coming in saying, I have a type, it's rich dudes. And I went into my dating life being like, I have a type, it's rich dudes. And then she meets Jordan and she is awakened to something about him feels different in a way that makes me want to try something totally new, because I feel secure and like I feel like maybe he has that thing that I've been looking for this whole time. And then she gave it up, and that was hard. Whereas I had that same parallel process with Jason, and then I went for it, but I didn't have to decide to marry Jason in 3 weeks. So I just was like, keep going, please. And I just hope other women meet Jordan figures and say, something about this feels different. He's not the nice guy. He's not the like up your butt nice guy who just does everything for you and is a doormat. He's a secure guy. And they're so freaking rare that when they come across your plate, you should eat them. Nicely.
On that note, well, that was a good breakdown. I'm glad we got to finally talk about this. We got through all 6 couples. We'll have you on again probably in February when the Boston season airs and break down those couples. It's just it's certainly a bizarre concept. It's utterly ridiculous to basically work backwards. I'm going to marry them first or get engaged to them first and then see what they look like and then move in with them and then decide an altar, like, let's do this or let's not do this. But yeah, this was the first season that they've never had a marriage come out of this show. And so Does this show work? Who knows? I think when it works, it's the exception, not the rule, clearly.
Yeah.
It just, but it's mindless, entertaining television that we just talked about for an hour and 20 minutes about. So clearly it keeps our attention, and I'm excited about the next season and what's going to happen with that. So anyway, Jacqueline, congratulations on the clinical psychology degree from Duke University. You are now Dr. Jacqueline Trumbull. If you're in the Raleigh-Durham area and you need any sort of clinical psychology,
Therapy?
yeah, you need any sort of therapy. What percentage of your client base is solos versus couples?
It's about 50-50, but that's kind of happenstance. Yeah.
Do you prefer one or the other?
I have more experience with individuals, and I think that I like that you can form deeper relationships usually with individuals. So I probably prefer that, but couples are really interesting, and it's kind of a newer modality for me. So I'm really invested in improving there.
Just a quick question about couples therapy. So when you meet them as a couple, do you ever have to, or is it almost required that okay, I've talked to you both for 50 minutes, 60 minutes, an hour. I want to speak to each of you privately because I feel like one of you or both of you are not saying something in fear of hurting the other person, and maybe you'll tell me so I get a better understanding. Does that happen to where couples meet separately or no?
Yeah, I have an assessment period. So I meet with them one-on-one first, and then I meet with each of them individually, and then we meet together from then on out. And then sometimes if something major shifts in the relationship, like if one of them decides to end it, I'll have them do maybe an individual session so we can plan for that. But I don't secret keep. So if someone's like, yeah, I actually cheated on them and that's why we have all these issues, then it's like, oh, we got to disclose that. Sorry. I tell them that in advance.
So isn't that client doctor patient confidentiality? Or
the couple is my client. So
the couple is your client. Okay.
Yeah.
So if the man tells you in a private session, I haven't told her yet, but I've either had a physical relationship or an emotional affair or a physical affair with somebody else, you basically tell them, look, I can't not go back and sit there with you two and have this looming over our head and not bring it up. And it has to be out there because you guys are never going to get anywhere if this isn't brought up.
Yeah, I'm not going to call his wife, but first of all, I'll tell them in our assessment session, we're going to do individual sessions. I don't keep secrets. If there's an affair, don't tell me unless you want to work towards disclosure. So we don't necessarily have to disclose in the next session, but the plan has to be, we are going to disclose this because you can't, if I was told about an affair, I would say we're either working towards disclosure or we can't continue. I'm not going to call her on the phone and spill his secret, but you can't do couples therapy off of false premises. It's not going to work, right?
Yeah.
So.
Gotcha. All right. Anyway, Jacqueline, Dr. Jacqueline, thank you so much. Really appreciate you coming on. Obviously, we will be in touch, and good luck with everything in the new job and your big boy paycheck coming soon.
Thank you.
All right. Bye.
Bye.